On October 8th, 1873, a woman named Arizona Donnie Clark was born into the world. And then she invented iced tea. 99 cents. She grew up She grew up on a farm in Greene County, Missouri with her parents and her 3 siblings. Now, she had lots of names, it feels like, I'm not sure. Because some people called her Kate. Like, how do you get Kate from Arizona? I don't know. But I'm just going to call her by the name that most people know her by in today's story, which is Ma. So when Ma was just 7 years old, tragedy struck. Her father died. I know, they always do, huh? No, it's actually usually the moms in Disney movies. But this is not a Disney movie, really. So then her mother remarries pretty soon after his death, so she can make sure like the family is supported, they have money, and they can stay together. So her mom marries a man named Reuben J. Reynolds, and they end up moving to Oklahoma. It's said that Ma didn't have a good relationship with this stepdad. Like, there was friction. He worked in law enforcement, and Ma, she loved to hang out with, the bad boys. Eventually, she falls in love with one of these bad boys, a man named George Barker. On September 14th, 1892, the two of them tie the knot. They moved back to Missouri, and they set up a little homestead on a farm where George planted and harvested corn and beans, and Ma was said to just live out her trad wife dreams. She was making bread, waiting for the bread to rise. You see when people do those cute little sourdough carvings in the bread with the fork? Love that. She was probably doing that. I don't know, but I imagine she was. They ended up having 4 sons together: Herman, Lloyd, Arthur, who went by the name Doc, and Fred. So Ma is raising the boys, being a faithful trad wife. She was also known to attend church, doing all the things that you're quote-unquote supposed to do. And from the outside looking in, it seemed like a perfect little family. I mean, they had everything, except for one thing. The Barkers were struggling big time financially. They were drowning. Despite the fact that George was working multiple jobs, it just wasn't enough. It seemed like no matter how hard they worked, they could just never get ahead. As the Barker boys grew up, they really loved hanging out with the bad kids, getting into shenanigans, having fun, being little brats. From the time they were kids, the Barker boys were known to get into violent fights, vandalize houses in the area, and even rob people. They were even known to steal money from the church collection plate. I mean, they had no shame. And this led to them constantly getting arrested. Eventually, the family decides to get the hell out of Missouri and move to Tulsa, Oklahoma, hoping for a fresh start. So they get to Tulsa, and then they realize that it's just absolute mess over there. During this time, tons of people were actually coming to Oklahoma for a better life, for work opportunities, okay? It was booming out there, especially in the oil industry. So there was some major money happening in this area, and everyone wanted to be a part of it. Now, this drew in a lot of criminals to the city because they knew that there was a good chance that there was rich people in town, most likely to rob. So essentially, this was open season for the Barker boys. They started getting deeper and deeper into the criminal scene in Tulsa, robbing people left and right. I guess the Barker boys and their criminal friends would take meetings in the Barker house or in Tulsa's Central Park. So the boys become part of something called the Central Park Gang. Now you would think Ma, as a mother, she would be clutching her pearls. My sweet baby boys, how could you be doing this? She was known as a humble church-going woman. How could she raise such awful children? She may have been mad at first, but things changed. The boys, they stole things that Ma actually wanted. She's like, hey, I want a Blu-ray DVD player. And then they'd go out and they would get one. They allegedly would steal fur coats, fine jewelry, and the best silverware for their mother. Rumor has it, Ma would do some digging in town to find out where all the rich people with the good stuff lived. She's like, do you guys give out full-size candy bars at Halloween? Good to know. Noted. Then she would have her boys attack them, She would figure out the names and addresses and point the boys to the homes. Well, homes were getting robbed so often that the Barker family became local criminal celebrities. And pretty soon, it was understood that Ma was the mastermind behind most of the hits. She became known in town as Ma Barker. Now, for several years, the boys really seem untouchable. they're getting away with everything. But on November 4th, 1915, Herman Barker was arrested for attempted theft. Now, you'd hope this would scare him straight, but it sure did not. For the next 12 years, Herman, he was in and out of jail, getting caught, locked up, in, out, in, out. And this devastated his mom, Ma, not because she was disappointed in him. She was disappointed that he got caught. Every time the boys got in trouble, she would go to the authorities and, she'd put on a performance. Officer, please. My son, they're just such good humans and we're just dirt poor. Please don't arrest my sons. Just a whole, please, Mr. Officer. And sometimes it would work. But if that didn't work, then she'd stop crying and be like, here's a wad of cash. Leave my sons alone. But then there came a time where Ma could not bribe Herman out of jail. She wanted to make her own little safe house for criminals, so that they could rob and hide in peace. For a small fee, of course. Because she was already well known in the crime community, people really trusted her, and soon her house was packed with criminals on the run who needed a place to stay. If they needed something, the doors were open. Now, Ma's husband, George, he had been going along with this for quite some time. The money was nice, sure, but once Ma decided to bring the criminals into their home, his home, he was like, no, you're crossing a line. Plus, there were rumors going around town that Ma wasn't just hiding these criminals. She was also getting a little, with them too. Ma wanted love, and Ma loved bad boys. Well, George, her husband, he decided he had enough. He was done, and he packed up and he left her. Honestly, we don't know how Ma felt, but she probably was relieved in a way because she's surrounded by all of these criminals. I'm sure that's probably the safest you're ever gonna feel, right? Everyone was protecting Ma. Around this time, Ma's oldest son, Herman, he managed to get out of prison again. He tried to join, a more respectable form of crime, bootlegging liquor, other things, but it just wasn't doing it for him. He liked the drama and the risk involved in his true passion, robbery. In 1925, Herman and his younger brother, his name's Lloyd, they joined forces to rob a bank vault. Now, this was a huge job with a ton of risk involved, but somehow they pull it off, and they were able to get away with $7,000. And they didn't even get caught. Allegedly, around this time, Herman decides to get a tattoo that would capture the love he had for his mom. Right across his chest, he got a tattoo that said, "A boy's best friend is his mom." That's a lot of words for a tattoo. Okay. I guess people were really weirded out by this tattoo. There were rumors going around that Ma liked her boys a little too much. There were rumors and rumors going around that she was involved with her sons sexually. But there isn't any evidence or anything to support this. Despite having this tattoo, Herman managed to find a woman that would marry him. Now, Ma, she notoriously hated any girl that the boys brought around. She would try everything she could to break up her sons and their girlfriends. And if that didn't work, Mom was just really mean to the girlfriends. She would tell them that she hated them to their face. She would act like they didn't exist. She was just a bitch. For once, Herman stood up to his mom and actually decided to marry one of his girlfriends, a woman named Carol. She was into crime too, so you could say it was a good fit. Herman and Carol start robbing people all across Oklahoma and Missouri. Now, these were violent robberies that usually ended in murder. Carol and Herman were ruthless during these crime sprees, and they were killing people on the regular. On August 29th, 1927, Herman robbed a store in Kansas, this time without Carol. Now, somehow Herman had he botched the robbery, and he ends up getting caught by a police officer. Usually he would be able to sneak away or shoot his way out, but this time it was different. I guess Herman somehow gets cornered by law enforcement, and he's terrified, okay? He ends up taking out his gun and he shoots a cop in the face. And, oops, can't do that. He knew he had crossed a line. Well, after the shootout, Herman realizes that he fucked up big time. So it's either he wait and gets arrested or killed by a police officer, or he could just get ahead of it. He turned the gun on himself and he ended his life. He was only 34 years old. Now you'd think after this death, the rest of the Barker boys would learn their lesson and lay low for a while. But no. I mean, their mom was running a safe house for convicted criminals. They knew they always had a place to go, especially Doc Barker. Apparently he had this thing for stealing cars. One day he stole a government employee's car, so his ass was sentenced to jail really fast. And just like his brother Herman, before he died, right after Doc was put behind bars, he broke out of jail. So Doc has escaped, and then he gets found and recaptured and put back in jail. During this time, law enforcement had really caught on and discovered that Ma's house was actually one big hideout for all the criminals. This time, Ma wasn't just gonna wait for Doc to break out of jail, so she decided to form an alliance with a corrupt judge/attorney named QP McGee. QP McGee! What's my name, QP McGee? Oh, that's so fun. I love that name. QP was known to help out criminals in the area. Even though he was an attorney, allegedly he would break the law all the time by using fake money to bail his clients out of jail. He would also use fake warrants from other cities to bail his clients out. And with the help of QP, Ma was able to bribe her kids out of jail. So the boys are taking more and more risks because they feel like they can get away with literally anything. That's because they can. So Doc gets bribed out of jail by QP. Mysteriously, all the evidence in Doc's case was destroyed. Coincidence? Maybe. And then, wouldn't you know it, out of nowhere, the owner of one of the stolen cars decides to drop his charges. So Doc was free to go. You know, at some point, Doc develops a drinking problem. He became known as, quote, a dimwit and a drunk. He took extreme risks without really thinking them through. And he decides to rob a bank, but doesn't plan it very well. I guess the guard of the bank wasn't cooperating, so Doc and his army of robbers just shoot and kill the man. The gun gets traced back to Doc, and he's immediately arrested and sentenced to life in prison. Ma was devastated. Her favorite son, that she won't say is her favorite son, but it was her favorite son, Herman, was dead. Doc was in prison, and her other two sons, she's like, I forget their names, they're all right, Lloyd and Fred, they were facing charges too. Even with all her connections, shit was hitting the fan. Ma did have someone keeping her company, keeping her warm at night though, a man named Arthur Dunlop. And unlike her ex-husband, Arthur didn't mind being involved in the criminal world. He was a real man. So Ma's other son, his name is Fred, he was in prison for some other shenanigans, okay? He was in prison, and while he was in prison, he met this guy named Barker-Karpis. Alvin went by the nickname Creepy, because I guess he had a creepy smile. So Creepy and Fred were like little criminal besties who bonded over breaking the law. Literally, the same year they were released from prison, they started committing more robberies together. Eventually, Doc gets out of prison too, and the gang is really just all back together. Well, except for the one that's dead, Herman. Doc jumps right back into the life of crime again, joining Creepy and Fred. So the three of them form a gang that they call the Barker-Karpis gang. And right away, their reputation was brutal. It didn't matter who you were. If the gang didn't like you, bye. And the gang apparently did not like Ma's boyfriend, Arthur. Arthur was apparently an alcoholic, and he had a tendency to let family secrets out when he was drunk. One night, I guess Arthur had a few too many, and he decided to spread a little gossip. Well, Arthur didn't like these shitheads either. All right, so he's drinking. You know, when you're drinking, you start getting a little sloppy. He starts talking shit on the Barker boys. He's like, nah, they're not even that scary. They're not even that great. They're like obsessed with their mom. Yeah, being a little dick. So Arthur is out at a bar being drunk and talking way too much. And when he was talking, he actually kind of revealed the location of where the Barker-Karpis gang had been hiding. So someone at the bar, pretending to clean the counters, was like, you know, what's that? So he's drunk, he's at the bar, he's like, man, these guys suck, blah, 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 blah. And while being drunk, he actually revealed pretty loudly where the Barker-Karpis gang had been hiding, aka at Ma's house. Well, someone at the bar was listening, and knew the brothers personally. So that person, being a little brat, went to the boys and was like, hey, guess what? This guy Arthur, he's talking mad shit on you guys. The brothers, they already hated him, so they saw this as like their opportunity to take him out. They killed him and dumped his naked body out in the open for everyone to see. Well, Ma and the boys realized that they needed to tighten their ranks, aka get rid of anyone they couldn't trust. They had plans to expand their operation. At this point, they were operating across state lines around Missouri, Oklahoma, Wisconsin, and other places that I can't remember. And they weren't doing petty robberies or stealing necklaces for Ma anymore. Nay. They were robbing big banks and bringing home tens of thousands of dollars at a time. The boys, of course, gave Ma a cut of the money. She was their mother. And other than that, with all this money, they would just go on these lavish vacations. For example, they went to Reno, because when I think lavish, I think Reno. So Ma met Fred and Alvin in Reno, They hid out after a bank robbery. One time, Ma met Fred and Creepy in Reno while they hid out after a bank robbery. They rented a house and had the time of their life while hiding out from the cops. They hung out, they went to see some shows, they went to the casinos, they drank, drugs, sex, cocky, woo! But little did they know, for months, the Barkers were being tracked by people at the highest level in the government, the FBI.